Be me, 35, compliance analyst at a credit union, owner of a kitchen drawer containing enough takeout menus to qualify as a historical archive. My job is to read policies, compare them with what people actually do, and ask questions that make entire meetings go quiet. I review loan files, monitor account procedures, and explain why "we have always done it that way" is not evidence. The work rewards patience. It also rewards listening to the exact answer instead of the one you expected. That was probably why the woman across from me at speed dating crossed out every name but mine. It happened on a Thursday night in the back room of a restaurant I had never visited before and had already decided I disliked. The room contained 12 small tables, 24 chairs, one brass bell, and a handwritten sign asking us to keep conversations respectful and drinks on the coasters. I had registered 3 weeks earlier after an uncomfortable realization. I was not lonely in a dramatic way. I had friends, I spoke to people at work, I visited my parents twice a month, and remembered birthdays without electronic reminders. But every part of my life had become efficient enough to exclude surprise. I bought groceries on Saturday mornings. I did laundry Sunday afternoon. I ate at the same 4 restaurants and sat in the same chair in my apartment, while deciding I would eventually become more spontaneous. Eventually had lasted 4 years. A coworker mentioned the speed dating event, while 3 of us were eating lunch. I made a joke about conducting 12 failed interviews in one evening. Then I went home and registered. By the time I reached the final round, I had learned 3 things. 6 minutes is long enough to know whether somebody is being rude. It is not long enough to know whether somebody is compatible. And almost everyone asks what you do for work before asking what you enjoy. The woman at table 12 did neither. She wore a fitted black jacket over a dark green shirt. Her brown hair was cut just above her shoulders, and a narrow silver ring circled one thumb. A paper match card lay in front of her beside a glass of water. Several names had small lines through them. I sat down. She looked at my name tag. "Julian North," she said. "You sound like a direction on a map." "Only during business hours." "What happens after business hours?" "I become less reliable geographically." Her mouth curved. "Sloan Merritt? I sound like a private school with a fencing team." "Do you have a fencing team?" "We were disbanded after the headmaster disappeared under suspicious circumstances." The bell had not rung yet, and she had already made me laugh. When it did ring, neither of us asked about work. Sloan asked what I had changed my mind about recently. I said speed dating. "You thought it was a bad idea?" she asked. "I thought it was an efficient way to have 12 shallow conversations." "And now?" "Now I think efficiency depends on who is sitting across from you." She glanced at the match card. "Careful, that was almost smooth." "I can make it worse if that would help." "Please do. I need comparative data." I asked her the same question. Sloan thought for a moment. "Old trees," she said. "You used to oppose them?" "I used to think keeping every old tree was automatically better than replacing one. Then I watched a declining maple split over a playground 2 hours after we closed it. Now, I think loving something includes being honest about what it can still carry." That answer told me more than a job title would have. "You work with trees," I said. "Urban forestry planning for the city. Inventories, planting plans, removal reviews, canopy targets. I spend a surprising amount of time explaining that roots do not care where somebody wanted to put a sidewalk." Compliance analyst, credit union. I spend a surprising amount of time explaining that policy does not care what somebody meant to document. So, we both ruin convenient plans with facts. Professionally, excellent. The conversation moved quickly after that. She asked what I cooked when nobody was watching. I admitted I made very good soup and terrible bread. I asked what she did on a day when she did not have to improve anything. She said she walked through neighborhoods she had no responsibility for and judged their tree choices privately. "That still sounds like work," I said. "It is criticism without paperwork. Completely different." The warning bell rang with 1 minute left. At the other tables, people started exchanging compressed biographies and hopeful smiles. Sloan looked directly at me. "One important question," she said. "Go ahead. Do you actually want a relationship, or did somebody tell you to come here?" The room seemed quieter around us. "I want a relationship," I said. "I came because I got tired of waiting to become the kind of person who might find one by accident." She studied my face. "Good answer. Your turn." "I want one too." Not an immediate promise, not a project, a real relationship if the person and the life fit. The final bell rang. The organizer thanked everyone and explained that we could submit our cards at the table by the door. Mutual selections would receive contact details the next afternoon. Chairs scraped back. Sloane remained seated. I did too. She picked up her pen. One by one, she drew a line through the remaining names on her card. There were 11 names in total. When she finished, mine was the only one left. She turned the card around so I could see it. I crossed out everyone else, she said. There was no performance in her voice, no challenge, just a decision. That is very clear, I said. I dislike waiting for an email to tell me something I already know. Which is, I want another hour with you. There is a pie place 2 blocks from here. Will you leave with me? She held my gaze while giving me room to answer. The other people were standing, talking, checking coats. Nobody was waiting on us. The event was over. I could say no and walk toward the parking garage without explanation. I did not want to. Yes, I said. I would like another hour with you. Sloane tore the detachable matching slip from the bottom of her card and marked my number. I marked hers on my own slip. We put both slips in the organizer's box. Then she folded the full card once and slipped it into her jacket pocket. Good. I stood. For accuracy, I said, did crossing out 11 people make me the winner? Her expression sharpened. No. Good. It means I chose one more conversation. Nobody in that room was a prize, and I was not grading them. That was the answer I hoped for. Then do not ask questions you already know the answer to. Occupational weakness. She put on her coat. You have 1 block to become less annoying. You said the pie place was 2 blocks away. The second block is probation. We left together. The pie place was narrow and bright, with 8 stools at a counter and a pie case that made restraint look unreasonable. Sloane chose cherry. I chose chocolate cream. We paid separately before either of us could create a discussion about it. At the speed dating table, we had spoken like people with a bell hanging over them. At the counter, the pauses became easier. Sloane took 1 bite, then pointed her fork at me. Why did you ask whether you won? Because the card could turn into that story very easily. The story where 11 men lose and 1 man receives a woman. Exactly. I hate that story. So do I. She set down her fork. I crossed out names because I did not want to imply interest I did not feel. I kept yours because you listened. You did not spend our 6 minutes selling me a version of yourself. I considered bringing charts. I would have left your name and added a warning symbol. What did the others do? We are not discussing them. They gave up an evening for the same reason we did. They deserved to remain people instead of becoming material. That was the second answer she gave that made me pay closer attention. I asked what she liked about urban forestry besides ruining sidewalk plans. Sloane described walking a block where young trees planted 10 years earlier had finally begun to shade the bus stop. She liked work whose best result arrived slowly and belonged to strangers. You might never meet the person who benefits, I said. Usually I will not. That is part of the point. I told her compliance work had the opposite visibility. Nobody noticed when a procedure protected them. They noticed only when I stopped something. Does that bother you? She asked. Less than it used to. Quietly correct is still correct. That sounds like something printed above your desk. My desk has a calendar from last year. Reckless? We stayed until the server wiped the counter. Around us twice. Outside, cold air had settled between the buildings. Sloane tucked her hands into her coat pockets. That was an hour, she said. 78 minutes. Of course you counted. I noticed. She looked toward the corner where we would separate. I could have thanked her and waited for her to decide again. That would have been easy. Instead, I said, I want to see you again. May I have your number? Sloane's face softened. Yes. We exchanged phones. I entered my name and number in hers. She called herself, so I would have hers. I will plan the next date, I said. You do not have to prove anything. I know. I want to. Are you free Sunday afternoon? After 2. I will send you a place tomorrow by noon. You can veto it. 1 veto? Unlimited vetoes. Specific alternatives appreciated but not required. There is the compliance analyst. He was always here. She stepped closer. For a second, I thought she might kiss me. Instead, she touched 2 fingers to the sleeve of my coat. Sunday after 2, she said. Then she walked toward the train entrance while I headed for the garage. I did not watch her until she disappeared. I watched until she reached the light, turned, and caught me doing it. She lifted one hand. I lifted mine. Then we went home separately. The next morning, the event sent me an email saying Sloan and I had selected each other. I smiled at the screen. Then I deleted it. She had already told me. For Sunday, I chose a small restaurant that served lunch until 4 and a walking route along a row of old warehouses converted into shops and apartments. It was not a tree tour. I had enough judgment not to turn her job into entertainment on the second date. Sloan arrived in a charcoal coat and red scarf. She looked at the restaurant sign, then at me. "You chose a place with 4 menu items," she said. "I read all 4 in advance." "Of course you did. You can still veto it." She opened the door. "I am exercising my right to proceed." Lunch became 3 hours. We argued about whether soup counted as a complete meal. She believed bread was necessary. I pointed out that my bread could not legally be described as food. Afterward, we walked through the warehouse district. Sloan noticed everything. She noticed where a new curb cut sent rainwater toward a planting bed. She noticed a mural painted around an old fire escape instead of over it. She noticed that I always moved to the outside edge of the sidewalk when groups approached. "Why do you do that?" she asked. "Do what?" "Make space before anyone asks." "It is easier." "For whom?" I considered the question. "Usually everyone." That was not an answer. "For me too," I admitted. "If I move first, nobody has to decide whether I am in the way." Sloan walked beside me for half a block. "You are very considerate," she said. That sounded like a warning. It might become one. At the river overlook, the wind pushed her scarf across her face. She caught it and laughed. I wanted to kiss her. I did not know whether the moment belonged to both of us. So I asked, "May I kiss you?" Sloan lowered the scarf. "Yes." I kissed her beside a metal railing, cold enough to feel through my glove. She put one hand against my chest and kissed me back with enough certainty that I stopped thinking about the people passing behind us. When we separated, she kept her hand there. "Specific question," she said. "Stated intention. Good procedure. I can document it if necessary. Do not ruin this." "Understood." She kissed me again. Over the next month, we built something that had no bell and no match card. I took Sloan to a family-run restaurant where the owner refused to provide menus because the food changed every day. She took me on a Saturday walk through a neighborhood with 6 different species of street tree and promised not to use the word canopy more than 15 times. She used it 14. I cooked soup at my apartment. She brought bread from a bakery because she had heard my warning. She invited me to her place the following week. Her apartment contained plants in every window and books stacked horizontally because she had run out of shelves. A large city map hung above her dining table, marked with colored pencil rather than pins. "Work?" I asked. "Some. The blue streets are places I want to walk. The green ones are places I already have. Why no pins?" "Rent. I would like my deposit back." We ate noodles on her couch and watched a documentary neither of us finished. Before I left, I kissed her at the door. "Stay," she said. I looked at her. "Tonight?" "Yes, I have clean sheets, an extra toothbrush, and no expectation that staying tonight creates permission for another night." "I would like to stay." She took my hand and led me back inside. In the morning, Sloan made coffee strong enough to alter policy. I stood in her kitchen wearing yesterday's shirt while she cut an apple. "I have a question," she said. "I am listening." "What do you want to do next weekend?" "Whatever you want is fine." She stopped cutting. The knife remained safely on the board. "Try again." I smiled, assuming she was teasing. She was not. "I am flexible," I said. "I know. What do you want?" "I would be happy with anything." Sloan placed both palms on the counter. "Julian, I crossed out 11 names. I asked you for pie. I agreed to Sunday. I invited you here. I asked you to stay. And I planned dates. You did. Then every smaller question became mine again. Which restaurant? Which evening? Whether you stay? Whether we call this serious? You say whatever I want as if you're giving me freedom, but it means I have to create the answer for both of us. The truth of it landed before defensiveness could. I leaned against the opposite counter. I thought I was avoiding pressure. Sometimes you are. Sometimes you are avoiding the risk of wanting something I might not want. She was not angry, That made it easier to hear and harder to dismiss. I want next Saturday, I said. Doing what? I want you at my apartment. I want to make soup. I want us to try making bread together, because your presence may improve the structural integrity. Then, I want to walk to the late coffee place and stay until they ask us to leave. Sloane watched me. That is a lot of wanting. You requested detail. I did. Do you want that too? Yes. I exhaled. She picked up the knife again. Notice that you survived. The review period remains open. Sloane cut an apple slice and held it out to me. You are annoying before coffee. I took it from her fingers. You made the coffee. My first documented error. That conversation changed more than our next Saturday. It showed me how easily consideration could become concealment. I had spent years believing that an easy person was a kind person. I accommodated schedules, I accepted restaurant choices, I avoided making anyone defend a no. Those were useful habits until they became a way to remain unexposed. Sloane did not want to manage me. She wanted to meet me. So I practiced being specific. Not forceful, not theatrical, specific. I asked for Tuesday dinners when Thursday did not work. I told her when I wanted a quiet night alone instead of claiming I had paperwork. I said which movie I preferred and accepted when she chose the other one. Sloane did not reward every decision by agreeing with it. That was the point. One Friday, she wanted to attend a public lecture about heat islands. I wanted to stay home after a week of reviewing a complicated account process. We spent the evening apart. The relationship survived. Saturday morning, she arrived at my apartment with coffee. The lecture was terrible, she said. My couch was excellent. I am glad we both got what we wanted. One of us did. Do not become smug. I took the coffee from her and kissed her. At the end of our second month, I asked Sloane to dinner at the pie place. We sat at the same counter, although neither of us ordered the same flavor as before. The place was almost empty. Rain streaked the front window. I did not bring a speech. I brought a clear question. I do not want to date anyone else, I said. I want us to be exclusive. I want to call you my partner if you want the same thing. Sloane rested her fork on the plate. I do want the same thing. Yes, yes, but I need you to understand something. Tell me. Choosing you first did not mean choosing everything forever. The card was one decision. This is another. Tomorrow gets another. Agreed. And if one of us changes a decision that affects both of us, we say it. Agreed. She held out her hand between the stools. I took it. Then yes, she said. You are my partner. You are mine. We kissed outside beneath the narrow awning, while rain struck the sidewalk beyond us. Nothing about the weather improved. We did not care. The next 2 months felt ordinary in the best possible way. Sloane kept a clean shirt for me in a bottom drawer at her apartment. I kept her preferred tea in my cabinet and learned not to buy the version with artificial peach flavor. We did not exchange keys. We knocked, we asked, we learned which mornings belonged to quiet and which evenings could absorb another person. I met some of her friends at a restaurant. She met some of mine at a crowded Sunday lunch. Nobody needed a name in our story except the two of us, and Sloane made it clear before both occasions that she did not want the speed dating card passed around as evidence. You can say where we met, she told me, while we walked to the Sunday lunch. You can say, I asked you for pie. What can I not say? Do not make the crossed-out names the funny part. Those were people, and do not describe me as deciding you were the winner. I have never thought that. I know, other people will. Then I will correct them. At lunch, one friend heard where we met and asked who chose whom. We chose another conversation, I said. Sloane looked at me across the table. Later, outside, she slipped her hand into mine. That was a good answer, she said. It was accurate. Those things occasionally overlap. Her boundary seemed simple. I believed I understood it. Then the organizer emailed me. It was early in our 5th month. I was at work, halfway through reviewing a new account opening procedure, when the message appeared with the subject line, Couple Spotlight. The organizer said Sloane and I were one of 3 mutual matches from that evening who had reported continuing to date. A 1-year anniversary event was being planned. Would we be willing to sit at a short opening discussion about what made the format work? The email called us a success story. I felt proud. That is the honest part. I thought about Sloane turning the card around. I thought about pie, the river, the first night at her apartment, and the rainy evening when we chose exclusivity. I wanted to honor the beginning. I also liked the idea that the strange decision to register had led somewhere real. Without calling Sloan, I replied. I wrote that we would be glad to participate, subject to confirming the date. The organizer answered within 10 minutes with thanks and a request for a photograph. That was when discomfort arrived. Not enough discomfort to make me retract the answer. Enough to make me decide I should tell Sloan before sending anything else. I went to her apartment that evening. She opened the door wearing work trousers and a loose gray sweater. Her hair was tied back, and a faint line of green marking paint crossed one cuff. "You are early," she said. "I can wait downstairs." "That would be dramatic. Come in." She had soup warming on the stove. I put bread on the table and tried to find a natural opening. There was not one. So I said, "The speed dating organizer contacted me today." Sloan turned from the stove. "Why?" "They are holding an anniversary event. They asked whether we would take part in a short discussion as a success story." Her expression became still. "What did you say?" I should have understood the question from her voice. "I said we would be glad to participate if the date works." The room changed. Sloan turned off the burner. "You said yes for me?" "Provisionally. I did not confirm the date or send a photograph." "You said we would be glad." "I thought it might be nice. If you do not want to, I can decline." She looked at me for several seconds. "Do you hear what you just said?" "That I can decline?" "That you spent my yes before asking, and now I have to create the no." The words were quiet. They hit harder than if she had shouted. "You are right," I said. "You knew how I felt about that card becoming a public story." "I did. I thought this was different because it was the event itself." "Why would that make it different?" "I thought we could explain it correctly. To a room full of strangers who were there to be matched. Julian, they do not want our ordinary relationship. They want the woman who crossed out 11 names and the man she picked. We could refuse that framing. We could have discussed refusing it. You already volunteered us." I had no useful defense. The compliance part of my mind wanted to distinguish as provisional reply from a final commitment. The honest part knew that distinction did not matter. I had treated consultation as something that could happen after action. Worse, I had done it about the one part of our story Sloan had explicitly kept private. "I am sorry," I said. I answered a shared question alone. Sloan folded her arms. "Why?" "Because I felt proud. Because I liked being called a success. Because I wanted the choice to look important to people who were not there. It was important to me when nobody else knew." "I know. Do you?" I looked at the bread I had brought, still wrapped on the table. Not enough when I answered. Sloan walked to the window. The soup remained on the stove between us. "I do not want dinner tonight," she said. "All right. And I do not want you to decline by saying your girlfriend is private or uncomfortable. I will not. You made the answer. You correct it. I will." She turned toward me. "I need space, Julian, not as punishment. I need to know whether you understand this without me managing the repair too." "How much space?" "I do not know yet. I will contact you Sunday." It was Thursday. I wanted to ask whether we were still together. I wanted her to define the risk so I could endure it efficiently. That would have made her carry another decision. "I understand," I said. "I will leave." At the door I stopped. "I am sorry I used your choice as if it belonged to me," I said. "I will not contact you before Sunday unless there is a real emergency." Sloan nodded once. I left. In my car, I opened the organizer's email on my phone. I did not write that Sloan had changed her mind. I wrote that I had answered without consulting my partner and should not have done so. We would not participate, and they did not have permission to use our names, match details, or image in event materials. The organizer replied the next morning. The answer was polite. No argument, no pressure. There had never been a villain in the situation. There had only been a question and my decision to answer it for two people. I saved the reply. I did not send it to Sloan immediately. Sending it would have required her attention during the space she requested. I kept it for Sunday if she wanted proof. Friday evening, I went home and ate the soup I had made earlier in the week. Saturday, I cleaned my apartment, then stopped when I realized I was trying to convert anxiety into spotless counters. I took a walk instead. At every intersection, I noticed how often I avoided choosing a direction until the signal forced one. Sunday afternoon, Sloan called. Are you home? She asked. Yes. May I come over at 4? Yes, I want to see you. 4. She arrived exactly then. I opened the door and waited. Come in? I asked. Yes. We sat at the dining table. I had removed the stack of mail that usually occupied one corner. I did not offer food. I offered water. She accepted. Did you decline? She asked. Yes. I said I had answered without consulting you, that we would not participate, and that they did not have permission to use our information. They confirmed. You did not say I refused? No. Thank you. I waited. Sloane wrapped both hands around the glass. I am still angry, she said. I understand. Do not say that automatically. You are angry because I knew the boundary, liked the public version enough to ignore it, and left you responsible for stopping something you never started. She looked at me. Yes. I am sorry, not for upsetting you, for deciding that pride gave me temporary ownership of your answer. It did not. Sloane's shoulders lowered slightly. That is the part. I also understand something else. What? When you said I make you carry choices, I treated it like a dating habit. Restaurant, weekend, whether I stayed. But it is bigger. I avoid the vulnerable choices and sometimes make the convenient ones without you. That leaves you with all the emotional work and none of the actual authority. She looked down at the water. What are you asking for now? A chance to repair this over time. I want to remain your partner. I am not asking you to trust the apology immediately. I am asking whether you are willing to keep seeing me while I show you I understand. Sloane was silent long enough that I heard the refrigerator cycle off. I am willing, she said, but I do not want a grand date this week. I do not want a replacement memory. Neither do I. Dinner Tuesday, somewhere ordinary, you choose. The noodle place near your office, 6:30. I will make the reservation. All right. She stood. I did not reach for her. At the door, she turned. I did not bring the card, she said. I did not expect you to. I almost tore it up Friday. It is yours. I know. That is why I did not. I want to decide when I am not angry. You do not owe it a future. Neither do you. She left without kissing me. Tuesday dinner was careful. Thursday coffee was less careful. The following Sunday, Sloane asked me to walk with her through a public park where new trees had been planted along a path. I said yes, and she let me hold her hand for part of it. Repair did not arrive as one scene. It arrived as repeated opportunities to behave differently. When a friend invited both of us to dinner, I asked Sloane before answering. When my office scheduled a weekend review that affected plans we had made, I told her what I wanted before offering alternatives. I wanted to work Saturday morning, keep Saturday evening, and move our grocery trip to Sunday. She agreed to the evening and said she would shop alone because she needed Sunday quiet. Nobody lost. When Sloane received a request to lead a public tree walk on a night we usually spent together, she did not ask permission. She told me she wanted to accept and asked whether I wanted to attend. I said I wanted to hear her speak and would come as a member of the public, not as an assistant. She smiled. Good distinction. At the walk, she stood beneath a line of young oaks and explained why the city had chosen several species instead of planting one uniform row. She was clear, funny, and patient with questions that contained more opinions than curiosity. I stayed at the back. Afterward, she found me near the water fountain. What did you think? She asked. You made root volume sound like a moral issue. It is a moral issue. Then I was persuaded. She took my arm. It was the first time since the rupture that she initiated more than hand-holding. At her apartment, she asked me to stay. In bed, she rested her head against my shoulder. I missed you, she said. I missed you too. I was afraid the apology would be perfect for 3 days. So was I. She lifted her head. Why? Because I am good at passing reviews. I did not want to turn you into one. I am not grading you. I know. You are deciding whether the relationship works for you. And you? I am deciding too. What have you decided? I looked at her. That I want this relationship even when wanting it means risking a different answer from yours. That privacy is not the same as secrecy. That your first choice does not excuse me from making the next one. Sloane touched my face. That is a better answer than anything you said in 6 minutes. I had more time. You used it. She kissed me. By the 7th month, we were no longer repairing every minute. We were living. I had a key to Sloane's apartment by then, but it came with a conversation rather than a ceremony. She handed it to me one morning before work. Emergency access, she said. Or when I explicitly tell you to enter, it does not replace knocking. I put it on my ring. Same rule for mine. I gave her the key I had already had cut after asking whether she wanted one. This is practical, she said. It is also important to me. Good. Say both. I want you to be able to reach me. I also want my home to become one of the places where you are safe and expected, without becoming a place you owe me access to. Sloane closed her fingers around the key. That is very specific. I have been receiving feedback. Do not call our relationship feedback. Continuous improvement? Worse? She kissed me before leaving for work. 1 month later, we returned to the pie counter. It was not an anniversary. Neither of us had arranged a symbolic date. We had eaten dinner nearby and wanted dessert. The same server was working, but did not recognize us. That felt appropriate. Our beginning had been life-changing to us, and an ordinary Thursday to everyone else. Sloane ordered cherry. I chose apple. Halfway through, she said, I still have the card. I put down my fork. How do you feel about that? It is in a drawer. I do not look at it. I do not want to destroy it. I also do not want it framed. On a wall. A drawer seems qualified. Do you want to see it? I thought about the answer. Not unless you want to show me. That sounds like the old Julian. Then let me be clearer. I do not need the card as proof. I remember what you did. I care more about what we have chosen since. If showing it matters to you, I want to see it with you. If it does not, leave it in the drawer. Sloane smiled slightly. That is the new Julian. More words. You created this problem. I accept no liability. We ate another bite. Then I said, I love you. Sloane stopped. I had known for several weeks. I had almost said it at her apartment, then at the tree walk, then while she stood in my kitchen, criticizing the way I stored knives. Every time, I had waited for a moment that carried no risk. There was no such moment. So I said it at a counter beneath bright lights with pie between us. I love you, I repeated. I love your directness, but I do not love you only because you are direct. I love how careful you are with people who will never know your name. I love that you ask what I want and believe me enough to disagree. I love our ordinary life. I want to keep building it with you. Sloane's eyes filled before she looked down. She took a breath. I love you too. The room did not change. A plate clattered in the kitchen. Someone opened the front door and let in cold air. Sloane reached across the counter and took my hand. I love you, Julian, she said. I love that you listen. I love that you learned listening is not the same as disappearing. I love that you made a bad choice, understood why it was bad, and did not ask me to make the repair feel good for you. I wish that were a more romantic qualification. It is one of the most romantic things I know. I squeezed her hand. I want to ask for something else. Ask. I want us to treat this as a long-term partnership, not a step towards something we are pretending not to discuss, not an open-ended trial. I want us to be the first person each other consults on choices that materially affect both of us. I want protected time together and protected time apart. I want keys with rules. I want holidays discussed before either family assumes. I want to keep separate homes until changing. That is a decision we both want for its own reasons. Sloane watched me through the entire answer. That sounds like a policy, she said. It is not binding until you approve it. Do not make me laugh while I'm trying to answer. I waited. Yes, she said. I want a long-term partnership with you. I want to be consulted, not asked for permission. I want to make decisions with you, not for you. I want your quiet apartment and my crowded windows. I want to know which night is ours and which night belongs to ourselves. I want you to tell me when you are scared, before fear makes a choice in your place. Yes. And I do not want the card at our wedding, if we ever have one. Agreed. We are not planning a wedding. Also agreed. Good. She leaned across the space between our stools and kissed me. The server walked past, saw us, and politely became interested in the register. We left the pie place holding hands. Outside, Sloane stopped beneath the awning. For the record, she said, I did not know I would love you when I crossed out those names. I would be concerned if you did. I knew I wanted another hour, then another date, then exclusivity, then repair, then this. Separate decisions. Everyone. Do you regret the first? Sloane touched the lapel of my coat. No. Do you regret saying yes? No. Do you think you won? No. What do you think happened? I looked at her. You made the first choice. I made the next one. We kept going. Correct. Was that a test? You will never know. She kissed me again. 4 months later, 1 year after the speed dating event, Thursday arrived without either of us mentioning the anniversary until late afternoon. Sloane called while I was leaving work. Do you know what today is? She asked. The annual review of my geographical reliability. Good. I was afraid I was the only one who remembered. I remembered. I did not plan anything because we agreed not to turn dates into obligations without discussion. I know. What do you want? I want soup at your apartment. Your soup. Bakery bread, no experiment. I want that too. 7. 7. I am bringing dessert. She arrived carrying 2 slices of pie in a paper box. I let her in after she knocked, even though the key was in her pocket. We ate at my dining table, which no longer stored mail. One corner held a city map Sloane had given me after asking whether I wanted it there. Another held a small plant I had kept alive for 6 months under written instructions she claimed were not written instructions. After dinner, she took the original match card from her bag. The paper had softened along the fold. 11 names were crossed out. Mine remained. Sloane placed it between us. I decided what I want to do with it, she said. All right. I want to put it back in the drawer. I laughed. You brought it across town to return it to the drawer? I wanted to see whether it still felt important. Does it? Yes, but not as proof. It is a record of one brave thing I did before I knew the outcome. Then it belongs to you. She folded it and returned it to her bag. Ask me something, she said. Anything? Something you do not know the answer to. I thought for a moment. Do you still choose me when there is no room watching? Sloane's expression softened. Yes. Do you choose me when I have not made it easy first? Yes. Do you love me? Yes, I love you. I love you too. She moved her chair beside mine. We discussed the next month, one weekend together, one weekend mostly separate, a holiday lunch with my family, subject to leaving before anyone began a second political argument, a public tree walk Sloane wanted me to attend, a Friday evening I wanted entirely to myself. None of it sounded grand. All of it sounded like a life. Later, Sloane stood at my door with the pie box empty in one hand. Your place or mine Saturday? She asked. I considered saying either. Instead, I answered, mine in the morning, yours at night. I want to cook breakfast, then I want to help you move the bookshelf after you show me where you want it. You remembered the bookshelf. I want it away from the radiator. Compliance concern, basic survival. Accepted. I kissed her. She stepped into the hall, then turned back. Julian? Yes? Another hour? A year earlier, the question had meant pie with a stranger who had crossed out every other name. Now it meant coffee, keys, disagreement, quiet, work, repair, and a woman whose choices I no longer treated as instructions to follow. It meant my choices, too. Yes, I said. Another hour, then another day. Then we decide again. Sloane smiled. Good answer. She went home to her apartment. I closed the door to mine. Saturday was already ours because we had both said so.